Hi everybody again. What is a usability test? It's a structured process that explores the interaction between an objective participant and a proposed design. Now, the evaluation can be using a predetermined criteria or used to explore a design in order to uncover unconsidered problems, because you've got to remember there's always going to be things that we're going to miss and we're not going to realize. So the attributes of usability testing is the goal is to improve a product, to use real users, to do real tasks, and they're formally observed. They're not necessarily just left out in the wild. They need to be observed. The data needs to be analysed, and recommendations for improvements are made. Usability testing is vital. Okay, so the components of usability tests are the participants, the design, and a tester. So that's the three things that you need. And the phases of the usability test is you design the test, you prepare for the test, you perform the test, and you process the data, and then you document the test results. So what you need to do is you need to have it clear so the tester knows what they're doing, and we've talked about with starting, you need to get the consent of the users and let them know what they're going to be doing. You might not tell them specifically about the app because you might want them to discover it themselves with fresh eyes and know nothing about it, but you can still let them clearly know, look, we're testing this app, and this is the app, and what we want to find out about it, without actually predisposing them with bias towards the app. Okay. And so you need your participants, a test design, and your testers. And then you need to design your test, prepare the test, perform the test, process the data, and document the results. Design the test. State the purpose of the test. What are you testing? What are your concerns and goals, your tasks, the scenario, the measurements? So if you're testing a sign-up page, you're not going to be interested in search results. You might be in testing the entire application. You need to be very specific. How will you test it? Where will you test it? And who will be involved? So it requires a lot of forethought to set up a test, where you're going to get your users from, what sort of testing you're going to have. Are you going to have anyone sitting with them, giving them advice, or are you going to leave them in the room alone to work it out alone and not give them any advice? How are you going to record the data? Are you going to record the screen that they're testing on? Are you going to record them? Prepare for the test. When will you test? Do you have a test schedule? Write your scripts so that the tester knows how to give an introduction and instructions, and that it's consistent between participants, so that it's not that the results aren't biased by giving too many interactions that are beyond what was designed for the test. Will you run a pilot test? Will you do like a test for the test? Perform the test. So there's pre-test, the actual test, and a post-test. So, and that's a matter of pretty much like setting up an exam. You'll get the exams, an online exam test set up, and they'll have the test and the post-test, and you sign off, and yeah, that's good, and you let them go. Okay, now processing the data. So now this comes also into statistics and research, where you've got to collect the data and summarize the data and organize the data into meaningful representations. So by categorizing and analyzing them, and you might want to, there could be many ways of representing the data so that it can be meaningful, and graphs and tables, even pie charts might be helpful, but definitely you also need to be able to list the various areas that need improvement, and where there are successes, and you might be able to build upon those, as I've mentioned before. There's a lot of repetition in this. Document the results. Document the test protocol and procedures, the behaviour, what data was collected, how the data is analysed, and make recommendations how to improve it, because you will do more than one usability testing, hopefully. This is where there's issues where money comes in or becomes an issue when designing applications, and there may be only one run through, but if you can do more than one batch of usability testing, that will be more beneficial for the application. and for the end result. Okay, so the key points. Evaluation and design are closely integrated in user-centered design. They're vital. You can't have one without the other, because it's an iterative process, as I've said, and there's no way you can't have an iteration if you're not evaluating it. Well, I mean, you can, but how are you going to improve it if you don't evaluate it? And that's what you're going to be doing with assessment 3, is you're going to be evaluating each other's designs and improving on your evaluation, and you're going to analyze the worth of the evaluation, the feedback that you get, and you'll decide what you're going to implement and what you're not going to implement, and you need to justify why. So some of the same techniques are used in evaluation as they are for establishing requirements, but they're used in different ways. So there's 3 different types of evaluation: lab-based testing, in-field use, and studies that don't involve users, like expert review. The main methods are observing, asking users, asking experts, user testing, inspection, and modeling user task performance and analytics. So dealing with constraints is an important skill for evaluators to develop, as it is when you're designing applications. And there's always going to be a compromise when you're deciding what choices to make. With testing, as there is with designing apps, there's always a compromise. So there's many issues to consider before conducting an evaluation study. These include the goals of the study, the involvement of users or not of users, and at different stages it might be beneficial just to involve an expert, but you will always end up having to involve users. The methods to use, and practical and ethical issues, how the data will be collected, analysed and presented. And then at the end of it, there's also privacy issues on what you do with that data and how you store it. So what I'd like you to do is keep up with your essential readings. Check out these other readings beyond the textbook. There's additional readings, and then in Interact, watch the video on the usability testing of fruit. And I hope you've enjoyed this lecture, and I'll put up a lecture on our assessment task too.